Welcome to 180 Degrees, brought to you by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland and supported by the Government of Ireland. Our mission is to be at the heart of Ireland's energy revolution. In this season, we share with you the stories of people across Ireland working towards a cleaner energy future. We discuss energy efficiency in the home, electric vehicles and Ireland's charging infrastructure. Hello and welcome to Season 3 of 180 Degrees. I'm your host Louise, and in this episode we're talking about the different options for charging your electric vehicle. One of the most common comments SEAI gets on social media is around range anxiety. People are concerned that the EV won't get them from A to B without stopping to charge. This is called range anxiety. We asked a few people what they thought. Is the EV charging network in Ireland good enough to support the growing number of EV drivers?
I've had an EV now for about 10 months, and while I find the network grand, I have no facility to charge outside my house from my own power supply. If this could be resolved, it would be great and ideal.
As regards to chargers, I think it's great to see that there are more chargers coming on stream, like EasyGo and the public lighting options. However, we don't have enough high kilowatt chargers, 50 kilowatt plus chargers in the right places. Too many single chargers that cause people to walk away from their cars, leaving them blocked up when other people need them. We need to get more chargers in the right places.
Mixed reviews there, but clearly there is some work to be done on communicating what is available, making our charging network more visible. We're now going to hear from an EV owner, Noel, who drives his EV every day. Initially, he was concerned about making longer journeys around Ireland until he got better at planning and knowing where the charge points were on his regular routes.
Before you purchased the EV, what did you consider with the charging options?
Well, I knew charging at home would be possible because we're fortunate enough to have our own place to park the car outside the house. We have a night rate meter, so I thought, well, if we charge it when we get night rate electricity, which is midnight to 9 a.m. this time of the year, or 11 till 8 in winter, that's 9 hours at 8 cents a unit instead of 18 cents. Worked out the size of the battery and thought, €8 a week for fuel instead of 85 in diesel. It's kind of a no-brainer.
And was the home charger easy to install and get set up?
I knew nothing about them. I learned so much in the first 3 weeks. I didn't know what CCS was, what CHAdeMO was, what AC43 was, how fast these things charged. I asked a few people who'd been there before. I thought the best thing is just do something, repeat that's been something successful for somebody else. So somebody recommended the Zappi. Now, we didn't get the Zappi because we were planning to get solar, because I didn't believe in solar at that time. But it was a reliable charger, so we got that, and the install was fairly straightforward. Expensive. We got the grant, which cut the cost in half, but it was still €600 after the grant, which shocked me a little bit.
So how's the home charger been? I mean, you probably don't need to go out anywhere public at all then, do you?
Being new, let's try this all out. And I'm a tech geek, so I wanted to plug into as many public chargers and try them all out and see what it was all about. So the first month or so, I got about 6 RFID cards for every provider on the planet, including American and German companies that work on some of the chargers here. But we fell into a pattern pretty quickly of charging only at home. 99.5% of all our charging is done at home while we sleep. So it's kind of really convenient not having to go to a filling station, get out in the rain, even though it's only 5 minutes holding the nozzle with fumes going up your nose. The public charging network was largely irrelevant to us, just didn't need it. But it was nice to know it's there if we did. The few times we used it was on very long trips.
Yeah, and then you have to kind of plan, know where they are and organise yourself.
Yeah, well, the ESB have a very good map on theirs. So once I knew there was something at the end, we would just set off and expect to find something working. And I must say, you hear a lot of negativity about the charging infrastructure or people thinking about EVs. Yes, but the charging infrastructure isn't up to it yet. The infrastructure needs to catch up. But that was me 3 years ago. I was spouting on about it. But I was amazed at the size of it. It's quite impressive. I looked at this map and I started using them. And, there's a lot of them out there. There's about 1,500 of the things. Now, that's nothing compared to what we'll need in 5-10 years' time when 50-60% of the car population are electric. But right now, with, I don't know what the EV population is, I think it's about 15,000 on the Irish roads at the moment. It's working beautifully ever since ESB introduced charges.
Yeah, even just traveling around this summer, I've noticed them popping up way more now.
And they're constantly upgrading and improving.
We've been asking a few of our social media followers, do they have any favourite charging spots? Because we've been hearing about very scenic ones. So, for example, I saw one at the Giant's Causeway this summer in the car park, so you nearly get a view of the sea, and there's meant to be one on Achill Island, which has a fabulous view. So I was just wondering, have you come across any of them?
No, I haven't. I mean, we've been to Donegal in winter, Kerry in winter, and in all cases we used the chargers at our accommodation. They had either 3 kilowatt or 7 kilowatt. You just plug in overnight and you're ready to come back to Dublin the next day, which was all we needed. We didn't need rapid chargers at the destination. But it was comforting in the early days. You know, when I first bought the car, I thought, have I made a mistake here? Have I been too impetuous? Or am I going to regret this? So there was a bit of anxiety, you know, nearing the end of journeys, would we be getting edgy? But it just never came to pass. It was a seamless transition. It's all about practicality, about a car just working as a car to go from A to B when you want without hassle. And I found it doesn't need a lot of planning. Just charge to 100% the night before. It's very simple in Ireland because it's only a small island, so you can get anywhere in 350 kilometres. Once you can charge somewhere at the end. And a lot of B&Bs will have a plug outside or in a shed that you can park up and run your granny cable into. And even though that's a bit slow, that'll give you enough to be coming home the next day or 2 days later. I mean, if you're going to drive to the west of Ireland, you're not going to go for one night anyway.
And loads of hotels are getting them in now as well, I've noticed.
If you're driving for business and you're going down to a meeting at Cork and you'll be coming back the next morning, you know, there's plenty of fast chargers. I mean, the M7 and M8, it's incredible the amount of chargers on that now compared to even 3 years ago.
It sounds like Noel has charging down to a T, and I'm joined now by Brennan, Transport Programme Manager at SEAI, who is our expert in all things electric vehicles. Thanks for joining us, Graham.
Hi, Louise.
So I know you're a massive advocate for EVs and have been working in this space for many years, so it's great to have you on the podcast with us today. Yeah. You recently went on holidays in Ireland in an EV. You were chatting to me about that before. Can you tell us about the experience? Did you plan your charging stops in advance? Did you run into any trouble?
Yeah. Well, we were driving a 40 kilowatt car, so we have a driving range of about 250 kilometres, I'd say, practically, you know, that's what we would say. So we did a kind of triangle route. We went from Dublin to New Ross, then Cork and back to Dublin, and we charged 3 times along that journey. The one thing that struck me, we stayed at a hotel in New Ross. They didn't have charging, so that struck me. I would really like charging at the hotel when I go there, especially given that you could leave it overnight. It doesn't have to be a very powerful charger, you know, so I'd be willing to pay for it, no problem at all. I'd expect to pay them about €4, something like that, for a decent charge, full charge. There was fast charging then within New Ross City itself, the town. We had to go around the back streets to find it, which struck me a little bit because they're down near if you ever go down there, they have the famine ship tour, you know, and in front of that they have a massive big public car park. I didn't see any chargers there, and I thought, that's an ideal place.
Yeah.
So that's how we need more of them in places like that.
Were you using now like an app or something to find the nearest charger? Yeah.
No, we never got caught. Like, for instance, you hear a lot of people saying, I had to queue and wait for the charger. We didn't. We found all of them free. We did find one ICE driver parked in one of them, but we were able to glare at him angrily, you know, self-righteous indignation, and he moved out. Thankfully, he was sitting in his car. But the one thing I noticed was the reliability. They were all very reliable. I mean, I remember several years ago driving one of the early Leaf cars that took it down to Belmullet, and it wasn't the case that they were entirely reliable, but these ones seemed bulletproof. The nice one is that they've actually swapped out a lot of their chargers as well. They've got this mix. So they got this mix of fast charge and standard charge. So the fast charge is the 50 kilowatt DC, and then bolted onto the side of it, you can have the option of the slower 22 kilowatt. Different prices. If you use the fast charge, you're going to get charged an overstay. And that was kind of interesting because we wanted to get it all done in one big bolt, let's say. So we would have been staying if we were visiting New Ross, we said, we're here, let's go and see the famine ship, for instance.
Yeah.
And we had to kind of watch that because there was an overstay charge on the fast charger. right? So you got 45 minutes, right? Now, if there was more slower chargers there, I would have been happy to stay longer, right? So that was kind of one interesting thing. And that happened again when we went for a second charge. So we had no problem getting to Cork. And then we went to Kinsale, and we stopped in the town of Kinsale. And again, the charger was, it was in a shopping centre, and it was free and it was working great. But again, we had to run up and unplug the car and get it out of the fast charge slot, let's say, because we weren't staying that long, but we wanted to get it charged.
So is it typically around 45 minutes then for the fast charge? And if you're there with the slow charger, can you stay, is it about 2 hours?
Well, let's say, for instance, for that kind of car, we were getting, let's say, 80% at least, 85 to 90 even by about that time. So, you could move it off and say, well, I've got more than I need now for what I want to do next, because our next jump was to go from there to Dublin, let's say, and we had to stop halfway. So we needed enough just to get us halfway. Yeah. And again, along the route to Dublin, we had chargers every 50 kilometres.
Yeah.
But it was one.
That's on the motorway, I assume, yeah.
You'd stop, there was one charger. There was one location I stopped, there was one ESB public charger there. But behind it, I could see 6 Tesla chargers. There was 2 Teslas charging, and there was me charging on the so again...
Is it just Teslas that can use the Tesla chargers?
Yeah, at the moment. And you can pre-book them as well, which is interesting.
Okay.
Because certainly you'd get away from this anxiety of, we were checking the app as we went along on the motorway. We had someone checking and then looking to see, was it free? So we went with a strategy. We did use a strategy. We said, we'll see, is it free? If it's free, we'll have enough to leapfrog to the next charger if it isn't free. So we went with that kind of approach. And now, so you can imagine, I'm a bit of a techno geek anyway. I love all the technology and stuff like that and making arrangements for that. But it's not going to suit everybody, for that size car, let's say. But what's happening now is a lot of the cars coming out now are coming in this 500 kilometre range.
Yeah.
If you had a 500 kilometre car, you would have stopped once, on that
that whole holiday,
you would have stopped once. And the new superchargers that are coming in from USB, they offer up to 350 kilowatts of power. So 50 is the standard fast charge, so you're going 7 times that. Now, so there's a lot there.
Do you think those new 500 kilometre EVs, they're kind of reducing people's range anxiety, or do you think that's still out there? I think that's a big word that we used to hear a few years ago, range anxiety.
They're bound to, and it's still a factor, But I think at this stage now we've got about 40 cars coming out, and I was advising a relative of mine. They were travelling from Dublin and they had a more modern EV, and I was saying, I kind of helped them plan the journey. I said, you can stop there, and in the end he was driving to Castlebar, and I said, how did you get on? He said, well, we stopped once at this place. And I said, oh, okay, great. I was expecting him to have a bit more, but
more drama.
It wasn't a big deal. So I think what you're going to see is bigger, larger battery ranges on cars, more powerful charging cars. They can charge more rapidly. Yeah. And you're going to see a greater distribution of charge points.
Yeah, I think that's important. That seems to be people's main concern. Actually, you mentioned there ESB installed the new fast charging hub. I think that's on the M7 that you were mentioning there. What difference will those types of hubs make, do you think? Is this the first one, or is there more planned?
Oh, they have a whole series of these. So they're going to update most of their motorway locations with these multiple. So you never wanted to arrive and there's one charger. That's not going to suit people. So you have to have the option of charging when you get there, and have multiple options and some comfort that it's there, And I think, again, once you got bigger batteries, you can have the option of picking and choosing a little bit. If something didn't suit, you might be able to carry more range with you and travel on to the next location. So bigger batteries would give you more flexibility, but certainly the hubs having 8 options, when you arrive at a busy petrol station location, is going to make an enormous difference. And I think perhaps one thing we might want to think about is the idea of booking a spot as well. If you're travelling along the road, it'd be great to know it was reserved. Now, I think Tesla guys do that, but maybe a mix of those, that maybe the majority are free, you just arrive as they are, and maybe 1 or 2 are booked, so you might see that as well happening.
That's for the super organised traveller.
Yeah, that's true. True.
So what are the plans then to grow the public charging network outside of that, and what's SEAI's involvement in it, Graham?
Yeah. So to date, our most of our activity has been So 80% of the charging tends to be done at home.
Yeah.
So that's the bread and butter for SEAI. We've been busy there. The fast charging stuff has been left to the likes of e-cars, ESP e-cars.
Yeah.
And there's been money for that from the government as well. And there is more of a commercial proposition there, right? So people may be willing to invest and wait for the load to build up and eventually get a premium from those. So the 80% guys, they're the ones we're focused on, because in the best situation, those guys can switch to night rate electricity, and you're looking at about 8 cent versus 18 cent. If you buy that energy, you're going to buy it at nighttime. And so you can half your price of consumption if you buy it on night rate at nighttime, And all these chargers can be set to charge at nighttime and charge the car. So we have the home charger, so we give €600 for that. It costs in the region of, depending on what charger you go for, you could be looking at 1,000 to 1,300 for, a charger, let's say. Some car companies, if you buy a new car off them, they're throwing in the charger for free, which is worth €600 itself. So you've got the home guy, and we've focused there on people that actually have their own off-street parking, their own private parking next to their house. So the other people we're looking at then are apartments and people that live in multi-unit dwellings where they share spaces. So we're developing our apartment charger scheme, and we're hoping that will be open by the end of the year.
Fantastic. I think a lot of people will be excited by that. Yeah, it's a question we get a lot. Yeah,
it's very complex because you have to convince if like apartments are used or they're owned by these owner management companies. You have a mix of people that are members of that. So you have private landlords, you've got owner residents who live there, and you have to convince all those people to vote and install this wiring into the apartment. So we've designed our scheme to have 2 phases in it. One is to give them money, give the OMC money to put the wiring in, and the second is to allow individuals then to apply and connect to that local wire. So that's the way that's going to work. And then the third area we're trying to address are people that live in urban areas where they're using on-street parking, and that's the trickiest probably, because basically these are people that are going to park on the street, the car is there overnight, and you've got to try and accommodate those people. So we have our public charging scheme there. Now, that hasn't been a great success. There hasn't been an enormous uptake from the councils on that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at redesigning that. And the councils themselves, especially the Dublin councils, are looking at their strategy, and they're saying, there's a huge reluctance on the part of the councils to own any of those charge points. And then, okay, who are you going to get to buy them? You want a commercial entity to go and buy them. Well, they don't want to invest in them because there's no money to be made for putting a big lump of metal in the middle of the street there and all the concrete works needed to fix that. So that one is still evolving, and it may be that maybe what you see is the councils instead turning their attention to hubs, where you would say, well, this is kind of near the town centre and you normally go there to shop perhaps, and they would put in fast chargers. And you see that happening in London now.
Okay, yeah.
Where they put a fast charger in, you go there, have a nice cup of coffee or whatever it is, do a bit of shopping, and then, as I said, 40 minutes maybe, of that kind of time frame, you've got most of your charging done. And that's going to do you for most of the week in these modern EVs, if not 2 weeks, of commuting.
And can I get you just to tell us then about the SEAI charger grant that's available for EV drivers? Just how do people apply for it? What's it worth to them? I think you mentioned it, just the cost of the charger there a few minutes ago. Yeah.
So if they go to the grant section of SEAI's website, you'll see the EV grants there, and you'll see vehicle grants and charger grants. So if you look in the charger section there, you'll see a link to apply.
Yeah.
So you apply online via our website there. You've got 6 months to install the charger. And then once that's put in, you have to show us evidence that you have to have a car. You have to have an EV.
So a lot of people ask that as well. You can't put the cart before the horse. You have to have the car first. Yeah, that
kind of makes sense. You'd want to. The government is always trying to conserve its money, resources, and you want to give it to the most needy case. So we ask to see, have you evidence of a car? So we ask for that, and we want to see the car. It has to be an EV, obviously. It can't be any other old kind of car. And then we want to see it has to be installed by a safe electrician. And we use that information then to verify that the electrician you use is a registered electrician.
Okay.
And that his cert is correct. So they're important documents for us.
Brilliant. And supports then for businesses. This is kind of a new thing. You can actually get a charger grant if you have a business car, isn't that correct?
So you can get, if you have a company car.
Company car.
Yeah. So let's say you're lucky enough to get offered a company car. You've got the benefit in kind. So basically, that's 30%. If you have a company car, you've got to pay up to 30% of it in taxes each year. That's the penalty. Imagine getting tax relief on all of that, depending on the value of the car. That's what the BIK for electric vehicles are. If you're buying an EV and you have a company car, buy a BEV and you'll be exempt from the BIK tax up to the end of 2022, I believe it is. And thereafter, they're going to bring in a CO2-based tax system for company cars.
Okay.
And EVs will be favoured again in that, so you'll always sort of win. But those guys, we brought them back in.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to get a home charger grant.
Yeah.
Now they can get a home charger grant. The only little wrinkle in that case is that they have to show us a letter from their employer saying this is the car that's been assigned to them and that they have permission to use it at that address. So that's the little.
That's fantastic.
difference.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you then, Graham, finally. So for anyone listening who maybe needs a new car or is thinking about switching in the near future, and isn't fully convinced by electric yet, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say have a little look. Go test drive an EV.
Yeah.
They're tremendous fun to drive. And I think that's something that gets lost, that people think, oh, well, they're nice and safe and secure cars, and no maintenance and low cost and all that. So that, yes, they are, but they're also incredibly quick and there's no gearbox, there's no gear change.
Yeah.
So if you look at some of the Teslas, which is interesting because Tesla, they have no legacy cars to sell. They don't care. They're going to give you the full works, the full acceleration rates that these cars are achievable. You might see some of the ones that are selling petrol and diesel cars, still great cars they're offering, but they might have their legacy fleet that they're concerned about, that they still want to keep selling some of those cars. So have a look around at the vehicles and try them out. To help you out, we have an EV comparison tool, right? So basically, if you go on to Google and just search for SEAI EV comparison tool, and that tool will actually show you the prices of all the vehicles, and you can compare combustion cars with EVs directly with the prices and the grant subsidies and all that stuff, and it'll make it easy for you to pick. So but definitely go and test drive one and have a look at the range on the car and see does it suit your requirements and how often you're really going to need to travel those long distances.
Yeah, so I suppose you just have to weigh up your options.
Yeah, and bear in mind as well,
Test it out. Yeah.
You're getting a discount. You get 50% off the tolls as well. Did I mention that?
Who doesn't who doesn't want to pay for tolls?
Yeah. So BIK, a grant when you buy the car, a grant for the charger, discount off the tolls.
Yeah.
The lowest motor tax you can pay.
Yeah.
You're going to be, as well as that, don't forget, 2030 petrol and diesels are going to get banned.
Yeah.
So who wants to buy a car now this decade, kind of thinking that it's going to be considered obsolete by 2030? So that's affecting consumers very strongly as well. And we've seen an insane growth this year in car sales.
Yeah, it's very positive.
I mean, last year during COVID, the car market plunged by about 25%. The EV sales rose by about 50%. And we thought, okay, another 50% maybe in 2021. Nope, totally wrong. 150% was the growth this year. So we see that. So about, let's say, 15% of car sales now are EVs. Now, we do call EVs, we call them battery electrics, and we call them plug-in hybrids. Anything that can be plugged in, we call at the moment an EV. So 15%, that's pretty good. We have at the moment 40,000 passenger car EVs on the road. So we're kind of on target so far for the first few steps in terms of getting towards this 840,000 EVs. It's not looking too bad this year. I would say great. So we got to keep it going.
Yeah, keep the momentum going.
Yeah, we will.
Thanks, Graham, for joining us. That was great. Really interesting as always. And for anyone listening at home, do check out the SEAI website for more information on electric vehicles. You can check out that cost calculator tool that Graham was chatting about and go take a test drive. Thanks, Graham.
Thanks.
And until next time. Thanks to our guests, Noel and Graham. If you'd like to find out more about electric vehicles and where to start, please visit drivingelectric.ie. That's it for the mini-series on electric vehicles. We hope you found it useful and stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, then please like, share and subscribe to our podcast. You'll find previous episodes on our website, seai.ie/podcast. along with information about our grants and supports. Until next time.